There is a specific kind of nightmare that haunts historians. Imagine you are standing in a library. The shelves are full. There are millions of books surrounding you, bound in leather, etched into clay, carved into stone. You open one. The pages are filled with symbols you have never seen. You open another. It's the same. You run your hand along the spine of a third, and you realize that you are the only person alive in the building. And not only that, you realize that everyone who knew how to read these books has been dead for 2,000 years. This isn't a nightmare. This is the reality of our planet. We think of human history as a continuous story. We think we know what happened. But the truth is, history is full of sudden, violent silences. There are entire civilizations, empires that ruled for centuries, cultures that mapped the stars and wrote poetry that simply went dark. They left behind monuments, they left behind statues, and they left behind words. But the words are locked. For centuries, we looked at the Egyptian hieroglyphs and saw only magic pictures. We looked at the clay tablets of Sumer and saw bird tracks. We walked past inscriptions in the mountains of Central Asia and thought they were just graffiti left by bored shepherds. We were walking past the voices of millions of people, deaf to their screams, their laws, and their prayers. But something is changing. Right now, we are living through a quiet revolution. It isn't happening on a battlefield. It is happening in server rooms and dusty university basements. We are breaking the seals. In just the last few years, we have cracked scripts that have been unreadable for 2 millennia. We are using artificial intelligence to read scrolls that were burned into charcoal by volcanoes. We are finally learning to listen to the ghosts. Today, we aren't just going to look at these codes. We are going to learn how to break them. We are going to reverse engineer the logic of the decipherment. We are going to look at the impossible puzzles from the lost empire of the Koshans to the charcoal library of Herculaneum. If we can read the words of the dead, what are they trying to tell us? Chapter 1. The 3 deaths of a language. To understand how to save a language, you first have to understand how it dies. This happens when the mothers stop teaching the language to their children. Maybe they are conquered. Slowly, the old tongue becomes a kitchen language. Then it becomes a whisper language. And finally, the last native speaker dies. When they close their eyes, the sound of that language vanishes from the universe forever. The second death is the death of the script. This is different. You can still speak a language, but forget how to write it. This happened in ancient Egypt. People still spoke Coptic, the descendant of Egyptian, but the complex art of drawing hieroglyphs was restricted to a tiny elite of priests. When the Roman Empire forced Egypt to become Christian, the pagan temples were closed. The priests were dispersed, and within 1 generation, the knowledge of how to draw the words of the gods was lost. The pictures became decoration. The third death is the death of the content. This is the final nail in the coffin. This is when we lose the cultural context. Even if we could read the words, would we understand the jokes? Would we understand the metaphors? If I say the Big Apple, I mean New York. But in 2,000 years, an archaeologist might think I'm talking about a large fruit. When we try to decipher a code, we are trying to resurrect a body that has died 3 times. So, where do you start? You look for a crib. In cryptography, a crib is a cheat. It is a piece of known text that you suspect is hidden somewhere in the encrypted message. In World War II, Alan Turing cracked the Enigma code because he knew the Germans always signed off their weather reports with Heil Hitler. He didn't have to guess the whole code. He just had to find the pattern that matched Heil Hitler. In ancient history, our Heil Hitler is usually a king. Kings are arrogant. Kings want their names to be read by everyone. So, when a king conquers a new land, he writes his proclamations in multiple languages, the language of the conqueror and the language of the conquered. They cracked a code that had baffled the world for 70 years. And they didn't do it in Egypt. You probably haven't heard of them. And they had a script. In the 1950s, archaeologists started finding inscriptions in the mountains of Central Asia. They looked vaguely Greek, but they weren't Greek. They looked vaguely Aramaic, but they weren't Aramaic. They called it the unknown Kushan script. For 70 years, it sat in the unsolved file. We had dozens of inscriptions. We knew who the people were, but the words were gibberish. Enter a team of researchers from the University of Cologne in Germany, led by Svenja Bonnan. They didn't have a Rosetta Stone, but they had something else. They had a bilingual found in the Almosi Gorge in Tajikistan. It was a rock face carved with 2 messages. One was in the unknown Kushan script. The other was in Bactrian. Now, Bactrian is a language we can read. It was written using the Greek alphabet, but spoken by Iranians. The team looked at the Bactrian text. It contained a very specific phrase, King of Kings, Vema Tuktu. This was the crib. They looked at the unknown Kushan script. They looked for a pattern. They needed a sequence of characters that repeated King of Kings, followed by a unique name, Vema Tuktu. It's like playing Wordle with history. They found it. They found the repeating sequence. Once they had the name Vema Tuktu, they had the sounds for V, M, T, K. They took those sounds and applied them to other inscriptions. Suddenly, the gibberish started to speak. They realized the language wasn't Bactrian. It was a completely new branch of the Iranian language family. They tentatively called it Itayo-Tocharian. This happened now. This paper was published in July 2023. Why does this matter? Because for the first time in 2,000 years, the Kushan people are speaking to us in their own voice. We are reading their administrative records. We are seeing how they organized their empire. We realized that the unknown script wasn't just a messy version of Greek. It was a sophisticated system created specifically to capture the sounds of a nomadic language that the Greek alphabet couldn't handle. The Kushan breakthrough proved that the age of discovery isn't over. We usually think that all the great discoveries were made by guys in pith helmets in the 1920s. But the greatest discoveries are happening right now, because we are finally treating these scripts not as art, but as data. But what happens when you don't have a bilingual? What happens when you don't have a Rosetta Stone? and you don't have a rock face in Tajikistan. What happens when the book you want to read has been burned into a lump of charcoal? Chapter 3. The Library of Fire, the Vesuvius Challenge. In 79 AD, Mount Vesuvius erupted. We all know the story of Pompeii. The ash fell, the people died, the city was preserved. But a few miles away, in the town of Herculaneum, something different happened. Herculaneum wasn't just buried in ash. It was hit by a pyroclastic surge, a wave of superheated gas and mud. In Herculaneum, there was a luxury villa. It belonged to the father-in-law of Julius Caesar. And inside this villa, there was a library, thousands of papyrus scrolls. When the heat wave hit, it didn't burn the scrolls to ash. It carbonized them. It turned them into lumps of charcoal, instantly freezing them in time. For 1,700 years, they lay underground. When they were discovered in the 1700s, archaeologists tried to open them. It was a disaster. As soon as you try to unroll a piece of charcoal, it crumbles into dust. We destroyed hundreds of scrolls trying to read them. Eventually, we stopped. We put the remaining lumps in a museum case and gave up. We accepted that the knowledge inside them, the lost plays of Sophocles, the missing books of Aristotle, the secret histories of Rome was gone. It was there, physically, but it was locked behind a wall of physics. Until the Vesuvius Challenge. In 2023, a tech CEO named Nat Friedman and a team of scientists launched a global contest. They offered $1 million to anyone who could read the scrolls without opening them. How? Particle accelerators and AI. They took the charcoal lumps to a particle accelerator, a synchrotron in Oxford. They blasted them with high-energy X-rays. This allowed them to create a 3D digital model of the inside of the scroll. You could see the layers of papyrus wrapped around each other like a Swiss roll, but there was a problem. The ink used by the Romans was made of carbon, soot. The papyrus is also carbon, burnt plant. Carbon on carbon is invisible to X-rays. There is no contrast. To the human eye, the 3D scan just looked like a black mess. But to an AI? The team realized that when a scribe wrote on the papyrus, the pen physically altered the texture of the fibers microscopically. The ink created a tiny, tiny ridge. They trained a machine learning model. They told it, look for this texture. That is ink. Look for this texture. That is paper. They unleashed the AI on the 3D scans. In October 2023, a 21-year-old computer science student named Luke Ferreter was looking at the output on his screen. The AI had highlighted a few pixels. He adjusted the contrast. 3 Greek letters appeared. Oh. Then more. Porphyros. Purple. It was the first word read from the library in 2,000 years. Since then, they have read entire paragraphs. They have discovered a new philosophical text by Philodemus. They are reading about music, food, and the senses. This is a paradigm shift. We aren't deciphering a code. We are deciphering the physical structure of matter. We are proving that information is indestructible if you have the right eyes to see it. We have talked about victory. We have talked about the thrill of the Heil Hitler moment, the eureka of the Rosetta Stone, and the brute force of AI lasers. But now, we have to talk about failure. If decipherment is a video game, then the Indus Valley script is the final boss. And currently, the final boss is winning. Imagine a civilization that was bigger than ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia combined. A civilization of 5 million people that built massive brick cities with sophisticated plumbing, grid-planned streets, and standardized weights and measures. This was the Indus Valley civilization in what is now Pakistan and India, around 2500 BC. They were not silent. They wrote. We have found over 4,000 objects with their writing on it. We find it on square soapstone seals, on copper plates, on pottery. But here is the nightmare. We cannot read a single word. Why? We have an eye. We have supercomputers. Why can't we crack it? Because the Indus script was designed to defeat us. First, there is the problem of brevity. The Rosetta Stone gave us a long, continuous text. The Herculaneum scrolls are entire books. But the average Indus inscription is just 5 symbols long. 5. Imagine trying to reconstruct the entire English language, but the only evidence you have are license plates and Twitter usernames. That is what we are dealing with. We don't have their history books. We have their property tags. Second, there is the problem of language. We don't know what language they spoke. In Egypt, we knew Coptic, so we could work backward to hieroglyphs. In the Maya decipherment, we had modern Mayan speakers. But the Indus language might be an isolate. It might be a language that died out completely, leaving no descendants. If that is true, we could stare at these symbols for 10,000 years and never know what they sound like. Right now, the academic world is split into a vicious civil war. On one side, you have the Dravidian hypothesis. They believe the Indus people were the ancestors of the people who live in South India today, Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam. They point to the fish symbol. In Dravidian, the word for fish is min, but min is also the word for star. So, when we see a fish symbol in the sky on a seal, maybe it reads star. It fits. It's elegant. On the other side, you have the Sanskrit hypothesis. They argue that the Indus people were the ancestors of the Vedic culture. They look for links to the ancient Hindu texts. And then there is the third group, the most terrifying group. They argue that it isn't writing at all. They suggest that these symbols are just emblems, like a Nike swoosh or a stop sign. A stop sign has meaning, but it isn't a language. You can't write a poem with traffic signs. If this group is right, then there is nothing to decipher. The silence is permanent. The Indus Valley is a reminder that civilization is fragile. You can build the greatest cities on earth. You can trade with the world. You can master engineering. And still be forgotten. Chapter 5. The book that nobody can read, the Voynich manuscript. Let's jump forward 3,000 years. Let us leave the dusty plains of Pakistan and go to a rare book library at Yale University. Sitting in a vault is a small book. It's about 240 pages. The vellum, calfskin, dates to the early 1400s. Open it and you enter a fever dream. There are drawings of plants that do not exist on Earth. There are drawings of naked women bathing in green tubes that look like complex biological machinery. There are fold-out charts of astronomical systems that don't match our sky. And then there is the text, 200,000 characters, written in a flowing, elegant loop. It looks like a language. It has structure. It has paragraphs. It has bullet points. This is the Voynich manuscript. It is the white whale of cryptography. The greatest codebreakers of the 20th century tried to read it. William Friedman, the man who founded the NSA and broke the Japanese Purple Code in World War II, spent 30 years staring at these pages. He failed. We have thrown everything at it. We used IBM punch card computers in the 1960s. We use deep learning neural networks in 2020. The computer analyzes the text and says, this is a language. It follows Zipf's law mathematical rule that governs the frequency of words in natural languages. The structure is too complex to be random gibberish, but it implies nothing. It connects to nothing. This leads us to the uncomfortable truth of decipherment. What if there is no secret? What if the Voynich manuscript is a hoax? Imagine you are a con artist in the 15th century. You want to sell a rare magical book to a rich emperor, specifically Emperor Rudolph II, who loved the occult. You can't write it in Latin because he can read Latin. You can't write it in German. So you invent a language. You spend months creating a fake alphabet. You fill pages with nonsense that looks meaningful. You draw weird plants to make it look exotic. You sell it for 600 ducats, a fortune, and you vanish. If this theory is true, then the Voynich manuscript is the most successful practical joke in human history. It tricked a Holy Roman Emperor. And yet, every year, someone claims to have solved it. It's ancient Turkish. It's Aztec. It's aliens. They are all wrong. But the book keeps seducing us. It sits there, smiling, daring us to waste our lives on it. Chapter 6. The Digital Dark Age. We have looked at the charcoal of Vesuvius. We have looked at the seals of the Indus. We have looked at the madness of the Voynich. But we have to end this investigation by looking in the mirror. We feel sorry for the ancients. We look at their crumbled stones and their lost languages, and we think, it's a shame they didn't have better ways to record their history. We think we are safe. We think that because we have the internet and hard drives and the cloud, our civilization will be remembered forever. We are wrong. We are currently building the most fragile history of all time. Historians call it the Digital Dark Age. Think about it. If you find a clay tablet from Babylon, you can read it with your eyes. You don't need electricity. You don't need an operating system. You just need light. That tablet has lasted 5,000 years, and it will last 5,000 more. Now, look at a floppy disk from 1995. Can you read it? Probably not. The hardware doesn't exist. The magnetic charge is fading. Look at a CD-ROM. It's rotting. Look at the cloud. The cloud is just a server farm in Virginia. If the company goes bankrupt, or if the power grid fails, the data vanishes. We are generating more data in a single day than the entire Roman Empire generated in 1,000 years. Emails, text messages, photos, blogs, videos, but none of it is etched in stone. It is written in electrons. It is written in code. In 2,000 years, an archaeologist might dig up your hard drive. They won't see your photos. They will see a black aluminum box. They will scan it with their version of a particle accelerator. And they will see billions of 1 south and 0 south. And they will ask, what was the encoding format? Was it JPEG? Was it MP4? Was it encrypted? Without the software key, our entire lives look exactly like the Voynich manuscript. Complex, structured, and completely meaningless. We are the mystery of the future. The invitation. So, why do we do it? Why do we spend millions of dollars scanning charcoal? Why do we spend our lives staring at fish symbols on a tiny seal? Because decipherment is the ultimate act of empathy. When we crack a code, we are defeating death. We are reaching back through the centuries, grabbing the hand of a person who has been dust for a millennia, and saying, I hear you. When we read the letter of a Roman soldier complaining about the cold, or a Kushan emperor bragging about his power, the years dissolve. We realize that they were exactly like us. They were arrogant, they were scared, they were funny, they were human. The code breakers, the Shangpolyungs, the Turings, the teens using AI today, they are the true time travelers. The map of history is still mostly blank. There are hard drives in landfills waiting to be recovered. The puzzle isn't finished. It's just waiting for the next player. So the next time you see a strange symbol carved into a rock, or a weird glitch in a computer file, don't ignore it. Stop. Look closer. Because the most dangerous thing you can do is assume that you know the whole story. The past is speaking. We just have to learn how to listen.